Over the years, I have seen a few table saw router table combinations, some with very clever designs, but I haven't seen any that were all that portable or easy to store. My woodworking tools don't always see continuous use, and I like to keep as much floor space open as possible. So when I picked up this job site table saw a few years ago, I decided to give it a few upgrades. Plans for this build are included in the description. No two models of saw will be identical, but some of these ideas may apply to your own projects. The first part of this series will cover how I made the router table. The second video will cover the vents. To start, I knew that I wanted to maintain the functionality of the saw and its original fence. The built-in table extension was easily large enough to drop a router plate into. In order to fill out the rest of the table, I used 1/2-inch MDF with epoxy-coated oak veneer for a resilient surface. Some T-track was added to create a guide for the new fence. The structure of the router table is formed by 3/4-inch plywood. This is where I attach my router's fixed base. A few more plywood sheets are added to give it a bit of weight and dust collection. The whole unit drops into the saw, and the underside provides easy access for inserting and adjusting the router. To compensate for the additional overhung load, I added a few structural supports. Now, let's build this thing. For the wooden block to drop in nicely, accuracy was going to be important. The ledge that it rests on is very narrow. There are a lot of parts and processes throughout this video, and to better show you exactly what's going on, a picture in the corner will display the highlighted part within the overall assembly. To start, I cut out the dust collection system using a circle template. Generally, what you're going to want to do is make multiple passes that are about 1/4 inch deep. Oh yeah, listen to that motor moan.
Shallow passes! Shallow passes! Help! Help!
Each layer was trimmed off the larger board only after the detail work was complete. Using the bandsaw, I cut out a few pieces and cleaned up the edge. This will become layer number 4. Again, a few shallow passes can be best. This layer has a notch. This is what the notch is for. It worked out that I needed about 1.5 sheets of plywood to get the underlying table surface to the correct level. More on that in a minute. You can see another notch down here. This one was unintentional. In the plans, I accounted for the first position of the table lock, but not the second position. I used one 30 by 60 sheet of Baltic birch plywood for the block. A 1/4 inch sheet makes up the bottom of the unit. This cavity is designed to be easily accessible but seldom used. All the features of the router are exposed on the outside. To bring the top surfaces in line, layer number 4 needs to be cut down, enough for the thickness of the router plate, and also the T-track. A router table would make much faster work of this. On either side of the block, I left a small gap for expansion of the wood. The plan was to glue all the separate parts together. While the glue dries, I want a few dowel pins to hold the parts in perfect alignment. So I started with 2 pins and then drilled the rest of the holes. The first set of dowels went in a bit too tight, so I sanded down the second set. In addition to the dowels, there were a few clamps. To smooth out the surface, I used some construction adhesive like I would some Bondo or body filler. I may have taken this a little too far. An alternate version of this router table could be made with a box for dust collection, but I feel the bulk of this unit has helped keep the surface extremely stable in a space that is not climate controlled. With the block now in one piece, I could start machining. Throughout the assembly of the router table and fence, I needed quite a few threaded inserts. To simplify construction, I did something that isn't too common and used rivet nuts in everything. The design called for several of them, and I don't like buying a box with 25 or 50 of something and then only using 2 on a given project. So by using rivet nuts in the wood, I was able to save on the variety of components that I used. The hold on these was definitely good enough for keeping the tabletop components in place. Now, to mount the router. The router will actually be screwed into the wood below the plate. The reason for drilling through both is so that I can check the tightness of the screws holding the router without removing the router plate itself. A screwdriver fits nicely through the holes in the plate. After the glue had set up for a week or so, it was clear that the surface of the table was no longer flat. One reason why this unit is 13 inches wide is because that's the limit for my planer. To fill out the rest of the tabletop, I cut up some MDF. Not sure where the lamination footage went, but it's gone, and here is the result. Some red oak veneer was used. This set of holes was drilled through both the MDF and the block. This kept the top screw and the corresponding threaded insert below it in perfect alignment. I'll show more shots of this later. For a durable and moisture-resistant coating, I used some epoxy resin on all the wood components. I didn't want to spend any time sanding down the surface, so the excess epoxy was wiped away. The last feature of the top side is the T-track. It falls slightly lower than the surface of the table saw, so I used a piece of plastic as a spacer. Again, both parts were drilled out at the same time. The topside screws in the track connect with rivet nuts mounted in the bottom of the block. And more of the same. You get the idea. I used a little epoxy to keep these particular nuts locked in place. The block was then mounted to the table saw with 4 1/4-20s. These will keep the block from falling out when the saw is tilted upright. What do you know? More rivet nuts. Exposing the top of the router like this allows fresh, clean air to be pulled into the router rather than a bunch of dust. Listen to the sound of the block running over the surface here. If the pieces are not aligned, they make a distinct clicking sound. After adjustment, no sound. Very smooth. Switching out router bits is easy enough from the top side, but I prefer removing the router entirely and changing the bits on the workbench. It's actually faster that way. Because I bought the cheapest router plate I could find, there were no inserts available for it. I had some phenolic sheet laying around, so I used that to make a few. It's a durable, machinable resin that is fairly heavy and good for use on router tables. At this point, you have probably noticed that the router block is quite large. The table saw was not designed to carry that kind of load. So using some half-inch steel tubing, I made some structural supports for the saw. There should be a drinking game for this video. Every time you see a rivet nut, take a shot. Or don't do that. It'd be bad for you. Because there's a lot of rivet nuts. Yeah, you get it. Because the table needs to be completely level, the support tubes are also adjustable. Watch the gap between the aluminum extrusion and the top of the table as I adjust the supports. To keep the tubes from moving around the top side, I used a set screw, or set bolt in this case. Yes, this is how you void the warranty on your table saw. To further increase the support structure, I added a kickstand of sorts. One of the test components for my 3D printed table legs received a layer of adhesive-backed rubber. The PLA material melted slightly during this process, so I had to go quickly. The other printed component is the connector. Using a single 832 screw, it captures both tubes simultaneously. Now most of the load from the router table is directed into the ground. In order to have better power control for the router, I added a safety switch in the only place that it would fit. It works. That's good. The finishing touch was the new measuring tape. With the fence pushed up to the saw blade, I marked the new 0 and laid down the tape from there. The deck has a pretty decent capacity at 29 inches to the right of the blade. At this point there is no fence, so I did some freehand routing to test things out. In an ideal scenario, the dust collection system captures just about everything. In a more common scenario, this is how it works with dust collection on. And this is how it works with dust collection turned off. At this moment, I can feel sawdust raining down on top of me. Overall, I am really pleased with the way this turned out. I might make a few modifications if I was to do this again, but I'll save that for another time. I plan to have part 2 of this series on the fence uploaded next week sometime. If you like this video and want to see more, subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when new videos premiere. Thanks for watching.